Hey there, I'm Fabi from Bau-Woodworks, and today I'm going to show you how to make the Asanoha panel. It's way easier than you think, and I think you're going to enjoy it, so let's go. If you want to know more about Kumiko, go and check out my website. I have some articles on how to make this pattern as well as some other patterns and tips and tricks to help you get better Kumiko.
You need two guide blocks with its 67.5-degree bevels, a 22.5-degree and a 45-degree bevel. Then you need the pieces for the grid with the notches cut for the half-lap joints. Then the pieces for the diagonals cut roughly to size. The hinge pieces also cut roughly to size, more hinge pieces. And the lock pieces also cut roughly to size. Start by assembling the grid. This is fairly easy. You just click the half laps into place. And if they don't fit 100% or they don't fit the entire way down, don't worry, just take a scrap piece of wood and a hammer and force them into place. Alright, let's come to the diagonals. You will need the 45-degree jig and set it up so when you cut it, you cut away slightly more than half of the thickness. When you hold the piece in place, you apply pressure into the far left corner. Now with your real sharp chisel, cut away everything that sticks out of the jig, flip the piece over and cut the other half. Now your piece should look like this. Repeat this for the other diagonal pieces. For the other end, you will need a rough mark so you know how long to cut the piece. Therefore, you just insert the diagonal, flip the piece around, and mark it with a pencil. Now set up the 45-degree jig so you cut right next to the pencil mark, but leave the pencil mark in place. You can always readjust the jig and cut it a bit shorter. When chiseling, it's important to make rather multiple shallow passes than one heavy pass, because this gives you a much cleaner result. This time I was super lucky and it fitted on the first go. If it doesn't, don't worry, just come back to your jig and readjust it and cut it again. The infill pieces should fit snugly into the grid and there should be no gaps. Now repeat it for the other diagonals. Now to the hinge piece. You will need a 22.5-degree jig and you will cut one end of the piece from both sides. As you can see here, I've cut it in the wrong place and I will have to readjust the jig so it comes to a fine point at the end of both bevels. Do this for all hinge pieces. Now for the next miter joint, you will need the 67.5-degree jigs, both of them. Start with one jig and make a full cut. Readjust the jig until both pieces fit together perfectly. Now comes a little bit of a tricky part, but don't worry. Now the point of this piece doesn't have to be exact in the middle, it has to be on the lower third of the piece. just like this. Now set up your second 67.5-degree jig, make the cut, now the pieces should fit together like this, and you can repeat the process for the rest of the hinge pieces. Alright, now to the locking pieces. They will receive 45-degree bevels on each side, on both ends. And therefore you set up your 45-degree jig again. Make the cuts. Do this for all the locking pieces. Then mark the length of the piece with a pencil again. Set up your jig accordingly and make the cut. This piece should fit really snug and lock everything in place. After you've repeated the process for the other locking pieces, now it's time for the glue up. I like to apply the glue with a toothpick to the joints. Now you assemble the whole pattern while applying glue to every joint surface. And again, if a piece doesn't want to go into its place, just take a hammer and a scrap piece and slightly force it into place. Of course, the very last piece wouldn't go, and I had to cut it a little bit shorter. After the glue is dry, you can cut off the excess of the grid. Therefore, I use a straight scrap piece of wood and a Japanese pull saw to cut it off. The final step is to rub the pattern over a little bit of sandpaper to achieve a cleaner finish. And there you go, your first Kumiko.
So if you really want to jumpstart your Kumiko journey, go and check out my website. I have a kit for the Asanoha pattern, and it has everything you need. From the guide blocks, to the grid pieces with a notch cut into it already, to the infill pieces also cut roughly to size. So you can make your own.